Thank you very much, everybody, and thank you, Dr. Nehru, for the question. So on population, I'm serving 6 very different countries here in the New Delhi cluster. These are vastly diverse countries in terms of geomorphology and socioecology. They also have very different constraints when it comes to the interplay between human populations and natural systems. India, for the start with, which is the giant, the superpower in this region, has already overtaken China. It has exceeded 1.4 billion people. And according to UNDESA, until the end of the century, India will add another 265 million people to the 1.4 billion. So India is a superpower with issues because these 265 additional million people, they need to consume natural resources, they need education, they need shelter, they need food, they need water, they need energy. So, and India is one of only 3 countries globally that has a geomorphological range that ranges all the way from coral reefs at the coastal areas to above 8,000 meters high mountain peaks. The other country in this realm here in South Asia is Bangladesh, which is the country that receives more tropical cyclones than any other country. It has a population of 173 million people, expected to grow to 193 million by 2055. The Sundarbans, the largest mangrove ecosystem forest in the world, is of concern because they will get more saline water from the seafront due to sea level rise. In the same time, due to the melting of glaciers and the bursting of glacial lakes in the Himalaya mountain chain, it will initially also receive more fresh water from the Ganga and the Brahmaputra river until the tipping point of the glaciers. Then it will receive less waters. Sri Lanka then is not a small island developing state, but it is a relatively small country and an island state. It's just coming out of an economic crisis. The good news in Sri Lanka is the population is stable. It has already peaked. In Sri Lanka, of course, with the issues that the country has, we should focus on water, energy, and food security. Perhaps establishing a United Nations Green Academy in Colombo that can then function as a demonstration hub for the involvement of young people and communities, so that it can be replicated throughout the country to enhance community resilience for climate change issues. Nepal is, they have about 31 million, it's growing, expected to peak at 35 million by 2050. Nepal has frequent natural disasters, and many of these are linked to human development. So we cannot just say it's a natural disaster. Many of these natural disasters are, of course, accelerated by human activities. Nepal and Bangladesh are both 2 of the countries here that do not yet have UNESCO biosphere reserves, because UNESCO does not only have the World Heritage Sites, UNESCO has also the biosphere reserves, which are 1 year older than the World Heritage Sites. They're from 1971. And UNESCO is also host to the Global Geoparks Network. So these 3 site systems could be of relevance. The 4th country is the Maldives, the lowest lying country globally above high tide mark. Maldives has currently about 520,000 people, is expected to grow by 586,000 people by 2040. It has 1,192 islands, and they are disappearing over time. The country depends on marine resources and tourism, so it needs a tourism master plan that considers the ecological carrying capacity. Does the country with such a small population of only 520,000 people, do they really have the capacity for environmental management, or do they depend on others to assist them? So enhancing the knowledge and skills of the population and community is essential for sound science-based environmental management. We have to be careful with the numbers and types of tourism in the Maldives, trying to avoid adverse impacts on the natural and cultural systems. Bhutan is also a country that is very small by population. It has 790,000 people right now. The population is expected to peak by 2055 at a number of 906,000 people. I just read in the paper this morning that Bhutan is planning to develop a new massive international green city in an area over 1,000 square kilometers on its border with Assam, which is one of the Indian states in the northeast of India. Bhutan is currently planning a biosphere reserve. We are assisting them. For the time being, it has no biosphere reserve yet. I visited Bhutan in May this year. It is perhaps one of the cleanest, maybe the cleanest country in the world. It can function as a demonstration hub for all of South Asia and maybe also many other countries in the world, also in terms for science-based environmental management. But what about Bhutan's indigenous capacity to handle natural and cultural heritage? I believe enhancing the environmental management capacity of young people, including young girls and women, is absolutely essential for good natural heritage conservation and development. So my take-home message for that question, Dr. Nehru, is science-based environmental education, curricular and extracurricular education is essential, and we should establish more biosphere reserves, more world natural heritage sites and geoparks as an essential tool. These are the best tools that we have for the question that you asked me, what to do about the population pressure.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Boer. Like you are already mentioned about there is not only the human population growth pressure, but also you have the pressure from climate change and various environment and issues related with the policies, environmental policies of each nations also contribute to this mounting pressure on the heritage or natural heritage of each of these countries. So I would like to ask you a quick comments on a following question. So drawing on your experience in different geographies of the world, what suggestions and examples comes to mind with regard to restoration of connection between culture and nature? Because when the way ahead is have to have a very integrated management of culture and nature would be the one you suggested, biosphere reserves, more biosphere reserves in these countries would be a way forward. So what is your suggestions comes to mind? You already, of course, mentioned about the establishment of more biosphere reserves. In addition to that, is there anything else you would like to add?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Nehru. So, first of all, I think since we've all been very isolated during the COVID-19 crisis, when we've been sitting at home alone, I think that was the latest wake-up call to realize that we are sitting globally in one boat. We should really have realized that 50 years earlier, when in 1971, when the world was hit by the first oil crisis. But at the time, we didn't have politicians in the world, really nobody with a background in ecology, biology, environmental management, climatology, meteorology, and so on. So it was very much ignored. They were just thinking about how can we get fossil fuels back cheaper. So we are sitting globally in one boat, and we know that since some time. We know that since more than 50 years. Many of the global ecosystems have already been lost, fragmented, and tilted because of the overexploitation of natural resources. Bhutan is a good example that political will and the involvement of communities can achieve good results. It has a lot of forest protected and is perhaps one of the cleanest countries in the world. Other countries can learn from Bhutan. The second point I want to make is that we all of us, 8 billion people. When I was born, we've been 3 billion people. Now we have exceeded 8. We should all become environmental stewards. It is high time to understand climate change well, which is currently not the case. Currently, we still have black painting and greenwashing going on. We need to talk about climate change based on science, and this is why UNESCO, together with 10 other UN agencies, we have developed climate science literacy materials in many languages. I should be very happy to share that with all of you, and I also invite the participants perhaps to volunteer to translate it into the languages that they speak. It will help via schools and universities to enhance our knowledge and skills on climate resilience. Climate change has always existed. It exists right now. It's being accelerated by us, by deforestation and greenhouse gas releases. And we really must not think that it will go away somehow by itself, and it will impact natural and cultural heritage significantly. The third point is the best nature and culture conservation and community involvement system that we have is the World Network of Biosphere Reserves. It's also the World Heritage Convention, and it's also the global network of geoparks. We also have the Ramsar Convention. We also have from the FAO the Global Intangible Agricultural Heritage. So these are the 5 sites that we have in the UN system. They are very important. We have currently 748 biosphere reserves in more than 134 countries. These biosphere reserves are very important because they put people at the heart, and they have a different management plan when, for example, compared with World Heritage Sites, which are globally unique or of outstanding importance for humanity. But they can complement each other, and that is very important. So these sites are places to apply, test, and advocate for best environmental practices based on science and in harmony with nature and the people's local cultural heritages, intangible and tangible. In my opinion, we need to increase the number of biosphere reserves to around 1,000 until 2050 and connect them through wildlife migration corridors. As an example, the Sundarbans, for example, they are a World Heritage Site and a biosphere reserve on the Indian side. On the larger side, which is in Bangladesh, they are a World Heritage Site. So we will catalyze a dialogue between Bangladesh and India to try to persuade Bangladesh to also manage them as a biosphere reserve, because that will put people at the center of the attention. So not just to conserve wildlife, for example, for emotional reasons, but also to put the people there at the center. Thank you, Dr. Nehru, and thank you everybody for listening to me.
Thank you, Dr. Boer. Thank you for emphasizing once again the increased protected areas and keeping the people in the center of the conservations through the biosphere reserve concept. And so I'll move to the next panelist today, Dr. Aditya Ghosh. So Dr. Aditya, so like all the speakers were discussing about a lot of population growth, modernization, and in development in the Asia Pacific region. So with the modernization, many of the societies, the indigenous societies, also losing their local ecological knowledge. Along with it, also we are losing a lot of folklore of associated with the natural heritage of them. So, so my first question to you is, what role can intangible heritage, particularly Asia Pacific folklore traditions, play in restoring connections between nature and